previous video I talked about derailleur gears and concentrated on the rear gears in particular. What I'd like to talk about this time is the front gears. I mentioned that some bikes are sort of phasing these gears out and that's fine, but obviously a lot of bikes still have them, so I thought it was pertinent to talk about them. So, as in the previous video, the front gears are controlled by the left shifter, 1, 2, 3, low, medium, high, and the rear gears are controlled by the right shifter. We've dealt with them, we've got those sorted, we know they're okay. We're going to deal with the front ones now. Now the same rules apply regarding compatibility as well. You need to make sure that you've got the right chain on. So if you've got a single speed or hub gears, that's one particular chain. 5, 6, 7, 8 speed is one chain. 9 speed is a chain of its own. 10 speed of a chain of its own. 11 speed of a chain of its own, and so on and so forth. I've made a diagram regarding the front gears too, which is similar to that of the rear gears, and it's basically about the adjustment screws again. Now people tend to twiddle with the screws to try and get the gears to set correctly. The front gears are no different to the rear gears. The screws still do the same thing. They are literally a barrier. They give you a bandwidth for the derailleur to work in and nothing more. So once that's set correctly, then you can leave those alone and concentrate on the cable tension, which is what we're going to do. So incidentally, any tools that you may need to work today are as follows. And so what we do here is, in the low position, we wind the screw until the derailleur sits with the chain dead in the centre of it, if that makes sense. When you look from the top, you'll see the derailleur has an opening that the chain sits in. You want the derailleur to sit right in the centre of the chain. You can do that quite easily while the bike's at rest, because it will naturally rest in the low position here. So you can wind the low screw until the derailleur sits exactly where you want it to sit, which is in the centre. A little tip: if your gears on the rear are already working, make life a little bit easier for yourself and set the gears in the centre of the rear cassette. So on this particular one, I'm in 4th gear because there's 7 gears, so I'm in the middle of the block, and that keeps the chain in line. So when you're working on here, that's it in its dead centre point. 1st gear is an extreme and 7th gear is an extreme, so you want it dead in the centre so you know that the derailleur has as much clearance as it possibly can. Now to set the high screw, which is this one, we need the derailleur in the high position, which is quite difficult because we can't move it, there's no cable attached at the moment. So how do we do it? Same as we did the rear. We're going to watch our fingers and we're going to put it in the gear that we want it in. So I'm going to just pull that across. There's the middle and there is the high. So I'm just going to pull that across and see how far it'll come. Now I can feel it's hitting the chain there, so I think that's a little bit too loose. That screw needs to come in very, very slightly. So I'm just going to do a little wind against the high screw and just try to pull it across a bit more. Again, I want the chain in the centre of the derailleur. Look from the top, I want it in the centre, and that's roughly correct. So I think that's about right. And it's dropped down nicely at the small cog there. So I would say that those screws that we showed on the board are set correctly. I'm going to check the shifter compatibility with the derailleur. I know the shift is a Shimano because I can see that it is, and I know this is a Shimano, so they should work perfectly well. It's a 3-speed shifter, 1, 2, 3. It's got 2 clicks because it's got 3 gears, and that is more than capable of doing the 3 gears, so I'm happy that we can set this up. So in much the same way, we have the adjuster turned, the adjuster's at the handlebars at this time, halfway, and again that's so that we can adjust the tension on or off. So again, the indexing which we get from our mechanism on the lever, that one, is very dependent on the tension on the cable. I've already pre-threaded the cable on this one. As I said in my previous video, if you want to look about how to change the cables and the cable maintenance and the ends and things like that, look at one of the brake videos, because changing the cables is the same procedure. Just make sure you get the correct cable, not a road bike cable for brakes, and not a brake cable, a specific 4mm gear cable. So I've already put the cable in on this one. If you've got a cable in and you're changing it, just maybe take a photograph of roughly where the cable is before you take it off. It's very easy to mistake a little securing tab as a tab to hold the cable on, and it isn't always the case. Now I'll show you a picture of this, how it's set now at the moment, and this is what you should be aiming for. And you can see there that the chain's nicely in the centre of the derailleur, so that should help us to drop into the smallest gear should we need to for climbing hills, etc. There's also a little bit of play in that, as in we can move the tension on the cables if it doesn't quite fall in, and we can maybe even slacken that screw out, the low screw, very, very slightly, just to let it move if it's not enough to get the cable, the chain to drop down once the cable's attached. So I'm going to get this cable attached now. As I say, if you have got the cable already attached, then maybe take a photograph of it before you take it off so you know where it goes. And again, make sure that your shifter is in the position that the chain is. So when the chain is on the smallest cog here, the derailleur sits at rest on the smallest cog. So we want it in number 1. We've got the shifter in number 1, so we know that's okay. If you don't, it'd still work, but you'd miss a gear. You wouldn't have enough clicks. So I'm just going to connect this up. I have cut this cable very slightly short, so I just need to use a pair of grips to grip it and pull it into there. Now if you've got a full suspension bike, there is a chance that you won't be able to get at this bolt. I know that because my bike in particular, you can't put the cable on when it's in first gear, because the frame, the way the frame's made, obstructs the Allen key bolt, so you can't tighten the cable up. And there's a way around that which I'll show you later on. So, I've connected the cable. I know I'm in one there, I know I'm in one there. I'm ignoring the rear because it's not important at the minute, so I'm going to change a gear. And it's gone up. So, we're about centre. Again, if I show you the picture now, you can see we're maybe slightly over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slacken that up very slightly, wind that in a little bit to get that centred. And we've gone centre there. Let's try the next gear. And that's gone up nice and smooth. And again, we're about centre there. Because I've got a little bit of adjustment on the cable, I can slacken that up very, very slightly. I'll try the second gear. That's dropped in nicely. And the next gear. Not quite there, look, it's not quite dropping in. Remember I said we could try and adjust the screw? That's what we're going to do. We're just going to wind that low screw out a little bit, just see if it'll give us enough movement to drop that in. And there you go, she's dropped. So let's try again. That's still nicely in the centre. No, I haven't touched 3 gears, I'm not bothered about those at the moment. Second gear, nice and centre. Third gear, nice and centre again. Now I'm happy with that, that's worked quite well. There we go, and it's not making any noise or anything like that, so it's good. So, that's how you do it. If you can get everything, all the shifters and all that sort of thing, you can get the bolt, so you can access the shifter okay, fine. I've got a trick. If you can't get at the Allen key bolt, if you've got a full suspension bike, sometimes the swinging arm gets in the way and makes a mess of things. So I've got a little tip for you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to disconnect this cable. If this system works for your bike, switch off now, you don't need to know the next one. But if it doesn't, if you look and you think, Mike, I can't get at the bolt at the bottom, how am I supposed to tighten that up? Then this way's for you. So I'm just going to knock this cable off. Now then, remember I said on the shifter, when you connect the cable up, the shifter has to be the same as what gear the chain is on. So we set it on the first gear here because it was the smallest one. So we had the shifter on the smallest one. Now we already know where the shifter wants to be. It wants to be in the middle of the chain on every gear. So if you can't get at the first gear, you can't get the bolt when it's in the first gear, why not just try it in the second gear? It's quite simple. So, with the cable disconnected, you pull the derailleur where you want it, make sure the chain goes with you. And we're going to put the chain on the second gear. Now if I leave go that and pedal it, it's just going to fall back onto first gear again, and the derailleur is not in the right position. So if I connect the cable up now, the derailleur still thinks it's in first gear because it's trying to pull the chain over there now already because I've let go of it. So we need to hold it in second gear. And how do we do that? Well, if you remember our friend, the low screw, he limits how far across this derailleur can come. And if you remember just a second ago, when the derailleur wouldn't come far enough over, I just slackened that screw off a little bit and it let the derailleur drop back down a little bit, which gives us the first gear. There's no reason why that screw can't be wound in to hold it into second gear for us. Why try and hold it yourself? You'd need 3 men. So what we're going to do is we're going to wind the low screw in. We're going to hold the derailleur where we want it, so the chain is in the centre of the derailleur, as you can see here. We're going to wind that screw in and it's going to line up with the second gear. We're going to put the shifter in second gear and we're going to connect the cable up, and hopefully that'll work. You only really need to do it, as I say, if you can't get the fixing bolt for your cable because of the suspension unit, and as I say, the bike I have at home does exactly that. So I'm going to hold the derailleur where I want it. I appreciate it's difficult for you to see, but I will explain it. And I'm going to wind in the low screw until it holds it where I want it to do. Don't wind the screw in to push the derailleur out, because it's only a small screw and the chances of you damaging it are quite high. So all we're going to use it as is a bump stop. So I'm going to wind the screw in. There, it's actually got hold of the chain now, and it's actually holding it in second gear for me there. And I've set it so that the chain is dead in the centre of that derailleur, like I've explained before. So I need to make sure that that gear shifter is now in second gear, which it is. If I put it in first gear, I'll have no click left, I'll only have 2 gears. And on the other side, the gear, where the gear cable goes, is much more exposed, as you can see. So now, I can just connect the cable up and make sure that adjuster is halfway again. Now, there's a little bit of guesswork on the tension. Do best you can and try it. It might not work first time. I've never done it on this bike before. I'm giving it a go. So I'm going to just pop that cable on there. Again, I'm pulling it with a pair of pliers because I have already cut this down to length. So it's awkward for me to hold it by hand. I'm going to nip that bolt up. Now I'm happy that's working okay, but it would work okay because the screw's holding it in. So what we need to do now is release the shifter, so it's gone down to first gear. Of course, that hasn't gone to first gear yet because the screw's still holding it in. What we can do is wind it out, pedal it until it does. You can hear it trying. And there it goes. And the chain is dead in the centre there. So now we can give it a second gear click. Nice in the centre there. Click again, and it's in the centre again. So that's how you do it if you can't access the Allen key bolt or whatever's holding your derailleur cable on. That works quite well. Some derailleurs actually come with, when you buy a new one, they come with like a little plastic chock that can actually hold it into second gear for you. I wasn't aware of that until I'd bought a derailleur that actually had it on. I thought, what's this? And that's what it was for. I'd already figured out to do it this way anyway. So again, we can just try the downshifting. That's fine. We know that that's going to drop it into first gear because we've already done it with the limit screw. We know the limit screw's in the correct place because I've just wound it till the chain dropped down. I can see it dead in the centre. So we're good to go. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope that made life a little bit easier for you, especially if you've been struggling with those front derailleur cables and trying to get Allen keys up to the bottom and guessing its cable tension and getting it wrong, that sort of thing. That's just a little tip for you if it is difficult for you to fit the cables. Again, once I've finished with this, I would snip the end off and put a little cable tidy on it, and they'll be good to go. And put the shifter covers back on, but of course I've done that for your demonstration purposes. Again, if you're unsure about how to fit a cable to your particular shifter, Google is your friend. Have a look at what your brand is. It should say on the top what it is. This is a Altus A20, quite an old unit, this one, but you'll be able to Google it and figure out how to change your cable. Or if you're really stuck, take a photograph of it, stick it in the comments, we'll have a look for you. I hope that was helpful, guys, and thanks for watching. Anything you need to speak to me about, drop it in the comments. Anything you want me to look at, I'll do my best to do so.